بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم نحمده ونصلي على رسول الكريم السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Line number 69. وذومة الجندل قبل وحسل أقد ابنة الحارث بعد واتصل. And ذومة الجندل from before and occurred the agreement with the daughter of Haris, afterwards he stayed with her. So ذومة الجندل, it's a place that's about 750 kilometers from Medina Munawwara. It takes about 10 to 15 days journey in that time to get there. So this is referring to the Ghazwa of or the expedition of Dumat al-Jandal, and this occurred before. The before is referring to the Qabl, or the before is referring to that this was before the previous Ghazwa that's mentioned, but Banu Mustaliq. In the in the same year. So Banu Mustaliq happened in Sha'ban, and this happened in Rabi'un Awwal before that. As Ibn Qayyim rahimahullah and other people of ilm, ulama, have mentioned in their books. And in this وَحَسَلْ عَقْدُ, so what occurred in this, the other incident that occurred was the marriage of Rasulullah SAW to Haris, the daughter of Haris, Juwairiya, mother radiallahu ta'ala anha. So she was of course captured in the Ghazwa Banu Mustaliq. She was a prisoner of war, or prisoner taken as a slave, as was done in that time. That was the normal phenomena in the world in that time, at wars. And the Prophet ﷺ, he married her, but after she had fallen to the share of, because the prisoner wars are distributed among the warriors who participated in the battle. So she fell to the lot of Thabit bin Qais, and of course, as she was allotted to him. But Rasulullah SAW judged, and he purchased her, and then freed her, and then by her choice married. She accepted a proposal from Rasulullah SAW, and he married her. And because of that marriage, as a ikram to the Bani for her tribe Bani Mustaliq, 100 of her clansmen were also freed, because that relationship, they related through marriage, so it wasn't right that relatives being freed. So immediately the 100 of the was freed by the Sahaba, the companions of the Prophet, as a honoring the in-laws of Rasulullah SAW, because now they were related. وَبَعْدُ, and then after that, Rasulullah SAW stayed with her. They started life as husband and wife. وعقد ريحانة في ذي الخامسة ثم بني لحيان بدء السادسة. The marriage was contracted with Rayhana in the 5th, then Banu Lahyan in the beginning of the 6th. So she was Rayhana, the daughter of Zayd radiallahu anha. She was a prisoner from Qurayza, Banu Qurayza. And Rasulullah SAW freed her, and again also married her. This is one view, and this is the choice of the. There's difference of opinion on this. Was did Rasulullah SAW free her and marry her, or was she continued as a slave and hence a concubine of Rasulullah SAW? So the difference, the author of this poem, the writer of this poem, Imam Ibn al-Izz rahimullah, and other people of ilm, knowledge, ulama, believe this is the case, that he married her. That's why he says Aqdu Rayhana, the marriage contract with Rayhana. So as we know, with the marriage contract, of course, it's the choice of the person. Both people have to be, without coercion, they are married. So this is the view, one view of the scholars. A very large and very senior scholars, Ibn Qayyim and Ibn Kathir and others, are of the view that no, she was actually a concubine. Rasulullah never, because she was captured, she was part of the spoils of war, and it came to the lot of Rasulullah SAW, and there was never actually a marriage agreement that took place between them. And so there's ikhtilaf and this occurred in the 5th year of the Hijrah, after the Hijrah. ثم بنو لحيان بدو السادسة. Then the Ghazwa Banu Lahyan occurred in the 6th year, or the beginning of the 6th year. And Ibn Kathir rahmallah in his Fusul has mentioned, so because the Banu Lahyan, they sought refuge in the mountains and so forth, So they were actually left, and there was actually no fighting that occurred, and hence there was no action, so to say, in that expedition, that ghazwa. The next line, 71. وَبَعْدُ اسْتِسْقَاهُ وَذُو قَرْضٍ وَالصُّدَّ عَنْ عُمْرَتِي لَمَّا قَصَدْ. After it was the istisqa, the rain prayer, and ذُو قَرْض. So after that, وَبَعْدُ, after meaning after the previous incident, spelling mistake there. Istisqa, قال Ibn Athir rahmatullah says that this was in the 6th year. There was a drought, and the people sought Rasulullah SAW to make dua that rain can come. In other narrations mention that that they experienced these droughts in many or lack of rain or water, because majority of that region is desert. So if they have to travel in many directions, so for then it's a desert across the Arabia. So if they have to travel, they need water. Sometimes they ran out of water. So this istisqa was done many times. Istisqa was done, or the prayer for rain was done to seek rain and drink for the Sahaba radiallahu anhum. And the Muslims experienced thirst. The Munafiqeen, so the Muslims complained because the Munafiqeen, they used to say, if he was a prophet, na'udhu billah, then he would pray istisqa like Musa alayhi salam made for his people. He used to pray, make a dua for rain, and rain used to come. And this reached Rasulullah SAW. And Rasulullah SAW, then he spread his hands and made dua. And he did not return his hands, he did not lower his hands until clouds appeared and started raining. And when it rained in the sort of valleys and of the mountains, and the water came down like in streams in the valleys and the gorges of the mountains. And the last وَذُو قَرْضٍ is a ghazwa, ذُو قَرْضٍ, and this was after Banu Lahyan, after a few nights. And so what happened was that the Abdullah bin Ghatafan, these people, the one clan, they attacked Medina Munawwara. Well, what they did was they entered Medina Munawwara, and the outskirts of Medina, and in the jungles they killed the shepherds, one of the men of the Ghaffar, and took his woman, took his wife. And so they did this attack. So this came, of course, Salam, the famous Salam ibn Amr ibn Aqwas Aslami radiallahu anhu, who's a boy at that time, he chased after them. There's a whole platoon or group of people, and he chased after them, and he shot them with the arrows. They thought they were being chased by a large group of people because it's so efficient and taken. So they and he taunted them and he chased them until they left so many camels and so many things. And the announcer reached Medina Munawwara, raised the alarm that something has happened. The Prophet ﷺ with a group of warriors and the horsemen, and they set out, and along with Salam and Aqwa, he reached them, and they reached a watering hole called Dhu Qarad, and Rasulullah SAW slaughtered one camel there, and they stayed there for a day and night. And so in that way, and a large spoils of war, they left so many things behind, weapons, and a lot of it came to Salam ibn Aqwa for his heroism in dealing with this attack. So that is called Zu Qarad, because of the location where Rasulullah camped. The last line, he was blocked, وَصُدَّ عَنْ عُمْرَتِي لَمَّا قَصَدْ, he was blocked from performing Umrah when he intended. So the Rasulullah said out to do Umrah, obviously have to go to Makkah, the Quraysh, they're hostile, but they're not allowed to. So they stopped Rasulullah on the way, the Sahaba radiallahu anhum, and nearly 1,000 or so Sahaba with him. And as we know that was seen as apparently seen as a loss, because Rasulullah was turned around and sent back without an Umrah. But the next year Rasulullah came back. But this is considered the greatest victory in Islam, because what it did was it forced the Quraysh to the table, and then they had to negotiate. a peaceful settlement, which allowed hostilities. There's so many hostilities that have taken place in the region. All those hostilities were stopped, and what it did was it let Islam shine in the absence of the hostilities. So we know that only 1,000 or so in this year. Only a couple of years later, literally 3 years later, you have 10,000 Sahaba entering Makkah as conquerors, and then you within a very short amount of time in the Hajj, you have within that coming year, you have 100,000 people, more than 100,000 people from the whole region. They've accepted Islam and come. So although in the apparent it looks like it was the Rasul was blocked, he was stopped, an obstacle put in his way, but that actually allowed the Quraysh to come to the table and negotiate, and they had to they didn't have a choice. And when they came to the table, stop the hostility, stop, it gave the chance for Rasul to send Sahaba in all directions to give da'wah, invite people, and people could come and explore Islam and learn about Islam and accept Islam. So, and like that, that became Umrah of Rasulullah SAW became the means. The blocking of the Umrah became, and it wasn't something that Sahaba radiallahu anhum, from once they were ready for go just for worship and do tawaf and sa'i and come back. And when they stopped them and the news came that possibly Osman radiallahu anhu was negotiating in Makkah, was stopped, he might have been killed. Sahaba radiallahu anhu made the pledge that they were basically ready to die. So they changed from the battle, from mode of ibadah, worship, to battle, to ready to fight. And then when the treaty was signed, and it looked like it was unfavorable to the Muslims, but Rasulullah took the apparent lower position and opted for peace, and used the opportunity for the next 3 years to spread deen, which is the ultimate goal. And the Prophet ﷺ, so then Sahaba radiallahu anhu had to now, very short amount, their training was such that they could move from that war footing straight back to, and it wasn't easy for them because they were ready to, because they want to give up their life for Allah, but they obeyed the Prophet ﷺ, they obeyed Allah and His Prophet, and they opted for that. Many Sahaba did not like initially, because they didn't want to take the lower ground, and that for them felt like that was going on the back foot, and the Quraysh will take advantage, and they didn't like to see the Muslims, especially Umar radiallahu anhu, people, they don't like to see the Muslims in a weak, always concerned about the Muslims are in a good position, but Rasulullah SAW knew better, and the hikmah in Rasulullah's decision is what led to the Muslims at the end, within a very short amount of time, Islam spread in the whole region because of that. So sometimes things look on the apparent like a loss, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put khair in it, and that actually worked in the favor of the Muslims and Islam. May Allah give us understanding. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.